Zachary Wall, and for my final presentation, I would like to cover a win against anti-Asian hate. In 1882, enacted was the Chinese Exclusion Act, which allowed for Chinese peoples into the U.S., except for laborers and lower class peoples. Permanently, however, they were considered alien immigrants in the eyes of the law, which meant that they could not be granted citizenship anywhere in the U.S. And there was a second act in 1924 for Chinese exclusion, which extended it to all Asian peoples, so anyone could get into the U.S. However, more often than not, they were separated into their own smaller communities, such as the stereotypical Chinatown. And it changed to all classes of Asians, not just laborers and lower class peoples as well. Before the 1950s and 60s, Asian peoples weren't really able to gain citizenship or voting rights, or unfortunately any other rights at all. But in 1952, there was the McCarran-Walter Act, which eliminated all remaining barriers for citizenship of Asian peoples. So they can now not only come into the U.S., but they were an official citizen. And then in 1965, there was the Immigration and Nationalities Act, which made discrimination towards Asian peoples illegal across the board in all states of the U.S., which included voting rights and every other right that U.S. citizens typically have. Although, yes, precautions have been taken in order for Asian peoples to move to America, gain citizenship, and also gain those rights that come with it. However, there has been an increase in negativity since the laws were passed till about the 2010s, including approximately 11 in every 1,000 Asian people, 12 and up, in 2019 were reported victims to hate crimes. I say reported because not all crimes will be reported. Some people don't choose to go straight to the cops right after something happens for their own personal reasons. And there was a very large spike that occurred into the COVID-19 pandemic. Over 10,300 hate crimes were reported by Asian peoples. Again, reported, not total. I believe that is highly unreported in schools, and that goes for not only crimes, but general history as well. We don't learn enough of it, at least in my experience. I learned not much except for the Great Wall and the Mongolians. The specific law that I wanted to tackle in this presentation is the Public Law 117-13, or COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act. This act addresses multiple accounts of hate crimes of a couple different variations. However, most specifically discusses anti-Asian hate and anti-Pacific Islanders hate. Nearly 3,800 reports between March of 2020 and February of 2021 were reported. Race accounts for the majority of hate crimes committed in this time, and for the past 2 decades as a whole in general as well. The Act also notes that there are millions of positive contributions from to the U.S. by Asians and Pacific Islanders. It also predicted a majority of older Asian and Pacific Islander adults could be experiencing subtle and unreported hate, as I had said previous to this. The COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act also raises awareness and allows for more education on race and hate crimes related to race. It establishes a hate crime hotline, which is correlated and corresponded with the 911 dial system. It requires officers to further prevent, further address, and further respond to concerns and reports of hate crimes in the proper fashion, which includes investigating and finding perpetrators. And perpetrators of hate crimes must attend informational classes and community services, such as a form of therapy, to educate themselves on hate crimes and why they shouldn't happen, essentially. What I found interesting is that this was a specific response. As a whole, the act was a specific response to a mass violent shooting that happened in Atlanta, Georgia on March 19th of 2020. There were 8 victims involved, 7 of which died at the scene, and 1 died in a hospital room of the wounds that he was given by the perpetrator, who was 21-year-old at the time, Robert Aaron Long. It was said that there was no conclusive motive. However, the perpetrator was reportedly emotional in questioning and in investigating. These shootings happened at 3 different spots, which were all spas, and all the victims were Asian American.